we're providing commercial-free care, commercial-free education. So you're in the business of providing optimal health care to mothers and babies, not in the business of marketing products. So our restrictions on use of certain kinds of materials with mothers are really to empower you to give the very best information to mothers and babies, to give them the right information for the care that they need and what's right for them, and not pushing a product to them. Ian mentioned about when she talked about step 6 in exclusive breastfeeding, and the requirement to implement the purchasing of infant formula once you become, or before you become, a baby-friendly designated hospital. And that, of course, has been a bit of a controversy because it's a radical change in culture, and in these fiscally lean times, it's counterintuitive to purchase something you can get for free. So I get that. It does seem a little bit crazy. However, I would just pose a question to you. Is there any product that you use every day in your facility that you don't pay for? And so why hasn't formula fallen into that category? And why would the formula companies be providing it to us free of charge? And so I think therein lies a little bit of the answer and a little bit of the conundrum. We don't want you to be we don't want you to be required to be beholden to the infant formula industry to promote their product to moms. We really want you to be in the business of promoting optimal health to mothers. And therein lies that requirement to not accept free or reduced price formula, because there does create a sense of obligation by doing so. And it's really bringing you in line with all of the practices that you perform every day in other areas of the facility. So we're asking you to just plain be consistent with what you would do in other areas of the hospital. So I always put up this slide that Baby Friendly does not accept gifts from companies that violate the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, so this presentation is not supported by any of that. So I also wanted to set the stage. I think Ian showed you these numbers already, that 20,000 hospitals around the world are designated as baby-friendly. There's probably a little bit more than that. We don't have updated numbers from the World Health Organization or UNICEF. But I'm very excited by the numbers that we have here in the United States. I had to quickly change slides this morning. This is my favorite slide in my presentation. And the reason I love this slide is it's always wrong. And it's always wrong for the right reasons. So as of 2 days ago, I would have had a slide up here that said there were 156 designated hospitals, and we've just called hospital number 157 and congratulated them for their outstanding work. So it's Redlands Hospital in California. So this slide had to be adjusted quickly to bring up their numbers into compliance. But also, I think more than the 157 designated facilities, I get very excited by the 603 that are actively working towards designation. So just as a point of reference for you, when I joined Baby Friendly USA in November of 2009, we had 80 designated facilities and 70 hospitals working towards designation. And that's after 13 years of work on the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative in the United States. So in 13 years, we had about 150 hospitals that had stepped up to the plate to say, we want to either become baby friendly or had achieved that goal. So in just 3 years, look at how the numbers have changed. So the bulk of the hospitals that were working towards designation had moved up into the designated category, and look at all the new friends we've welcomed into the program. So that's very exciting to me. So here's what's happening in your state. Many of you have already officially stepped up to the plate and said, call on me, I'm going to work towards baby-friendly designation. So we currently have 9 hospitals who have officially registered with us and begun some work towards designation. 4 facilities are in the discovery phase of the 4D pathway, and I'll explain what that is in just a few moments. 4 facilities are in the development phase. We don't currently have anyone in the dissemination phase, and 1 is in the designation phase. So congratulations, you are all stepping up and making the important changes necessary to improve care. So why should you pursue baby-friendly designation? And I get asked this question a lot. Why should we go for baby-friendly designation? and not just practice the 10 steps? And so it's a good question. And so let me show you some reasons why. First of all, by achieving baby-friendly designation, it gives you some significant bragging rights to claim that you have answered the nation's call. So our Healthy People 2020 goals call on facilities to adopt maternity care practices to support breastfeeding, and we have a goal that says that by the year 2020, 8% of births will occur in hospitals that provide recommended care for lactating mothers and babies. And I'm excited to tell you we're nearly at 7% now. The baseline collected in 2007 was 2.9%. And the remarkable changes that have been taking place around the country, I'm sure that we're now going to exceed this goal in the next year or so. So that's very exciting, and kudos to all of you who are helping us do that. Another reason for joining Baby Friendly and achieving designation is to improve your MPINK score provided by CDC. So Becky showed you and talked a little bit about the MPINK program and the MPINK reports, showed you the components of the reports, and showed you where you were as a state. So achieving Baby Friendly designation is going to boost your state scores up dramatically. In 2011, the Surgeon General, Regina Benjamin, released a call to action to support breastfeeding. And Action Step 7 dealt with healthcare and maternity care practices, and Surgeon General Benjamin called on all of us to accelerate the implementation of the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative. So kudos, Oklahoma, for coming here and stepping up and doing that. The National Prevention Strategy for Health and Wellness also calls on healthcare facilities to adopt practices to support lactating mothers and babies. The Institute of Medicine obesity prevention policies also call on you to adopt practices to support mothers and babies lactating. Some of what we think the top 10 reasons for becoming a baby-friendly designated hospital, the benefits to you, in addition to having bragging rights, is it works to elevate your reputation, because Baby Friendly is a globally prestigious award. And in my opening slide, I didn't go refer back to the global initiative, and Anne talked about this in her comments, but Baby Friendly is a project of the World Health Organization and UNICEF. The two organizations establish the global criteria and periodically review evidence and make revisions to the global criteria, as Anne pointed out, not so much to the 10 steps, but how we apply those 10 steps. And then the international initiative works in conjunction with national authorities in each nation around the world. And so Baby Friendly USA is the national authority for the initiative in the United States, but we give out a global presentation, a global award. We think that another important benefit to the hospital is that you enhance an environment of competence among staff. And Anne, in her remarks, talked about how you do competency verification in Step 2 and your skills lab. And you're doing it in many other areas, but you're really drilling down and doing it in lactation care and support with Baby Friendly. As Anne also mentioned, that Baby Friendly is all about teamwork, and I think Becky also brought this up. It's a multidisciplinary team that needs to come together. And so by working together as a team, you really build powerful relationships that will allow you to improve practices in so many other areas. I'm such a big fan of teamwork. No one of us can carry this weight alone. And really the beauty and the value of working with teams can really take you further than you can possibly imagine. It's about delivering evidence-based, patient-centered care. It's about improving patient satisfaction. It's about improving health outcomes for mothers and babies. It's about demonstrating a commitment to quality improvement. It's about meeting corporate compliance requirements, and that's where the implementation of the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes comes in. It probably also is very consistent with many of the policies that you already have in place at your facilities. It will help you meet the new Joint Commission perinatal core measure standards for 2014. It's already been discussed that these are going to be mandatory for you to report on. But I think that the most important reason is that babies are born to be breastfed. And so thinking about all the benefits to all of you, some days when I go to work and think about some of the challenges that we're all facing together, and it's hard. I think about a mother and a baby, and I think about passing moms and babies on the street and being able to look at them square in the eyes and saying, you know, every day I go to work for you, and because I go to work every day, your life is better, and I'm proud to be able to do that, and I want to be able to look at those moms and babies square in the eyes. So answering the final question of why should you pursue designation versus just practicing the 10 steps, one of the things that we have found, and I think both Ann and Becky touched on this, is that many times we think we are putting practices in place, but it's that external verification of somebody coming in with a fresh set of eyes, taking a look at your practices, and confirming that what you think you've put in place is in fact solidly in place the way you want it to be. So I think having that external component is really important for confirming your practices. So let's talk a little bit about the new program that we've put in place. And this program is now 2.5 years old, so not quite so new anymore. It's really getting quite refined. But in the early years of the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative in the United States, the program that we offered to folks was that if you were interested in working to become Baby Friendly designated, you called our office, you paid a fee, you got our guidelines and evaluation criteria, and in a really cheerful voice that said, call us if you have any questions, and then call us when you're ready for an assessment. And what we found is that the process got very overwhelming for hospitals, and many folks got stuck in the process. And so we really took a look at that program and looked at what didn't work, talked to hospitals that were successful, and came up with some ideas that we thought would help move hospitals through the process a little bit better. So the 4D pathway was designed to kind of move you through in incremental phases. So the first phase that you'll see on the lower left-hand corner of this slide is the discovery phase. That's where you begin. And this is a non-commitment phase that we ask those of you who are thinking of becoming designated, we ask that you register with us so we know who you are. We'll send you a nice information packet. And while you're in the discovery phase, that's when you work to obtain your CEO support and get a CEO support letter and complete your self-appraisal tool. And the purpose of that self-appraisal tool is primarily for you. Less than us. We do not use anything from the self-appraisal tool in our evaluation of you during our on-site assessment. This is strictly your needs assessment to give you a sense of where you are already with your implementation of the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding and what work you might find you have to do in the future. Now, I'll tell you a little secret. Many times people fill out this tool, they think they're not doing something, and they find out they are. Sometimes they fill out the tool and they think they are doing something, and in the course of the work, they find out they're not. All of that is completely fine, and it's all completely normal, and it doesn't rattle us the bit to find that out. That is just a part of the process. So don't be intimidated by this tool. Don't be worried about submitting it to us. This is really what we can use to start conversations with you if you have some questions. We can pull up this document. What do you think you did on your, where do you think your practices are? How can we help move you forward? So that's the purpose of that tool. So the next phase is the development phase. And this is what we call your planning phase. So one of the things we saw in the Certificate of Intent program is sometimes facilities just dove right into implementing the 10 steps, for which I will say to you, the 10 steps are a bit of a misnomer. So if you have looked at our guidelines and evaluation criteria, every step has a series of sub-steps. It's really sort of like 68 steps. It's not such a catchy name, the 68 steps to successful breastfeeding. So we kind of didn't want to really, like, I'll disclose that now, but I just don't think that would get you all to the table here. But we understand that it's tricky. There's a lot to implementing here. And so just diving in and trying to tackle it sometimes can lead to an inefficient way of implementing those steps. So the development phase is set up to say, take a step back, take a look at what the challenges are, set up a multidisciplinary committee or task force, bring as many people to the table as you possibly can. Take a look at your MPINC results. Take a look at your self-appraisal tool results. Create a work plan that's designed specifically for you. Then Ann talked a little bit about the infant feeding policy, and I'm going to talk about this in just a bit. But we ask you to think about rewriting your policy at this stage of the ball game. And part of it is because under our old model, we didn't look at the policy until we went on site. And that just seems so crazy if you did all this work, and we very much believe that policy drives practice, and if you're using a policy that isn't covering all the required steps, and that's driving your practice, well, then of course you're not going to pass the assessment. So we kind of said, let's take a step back and let's see how we can help hospitals get on the right track earlier on in the process. So we have a lot of tools for that. This is put together a staff training plan. How are you going to tackle the challenge of training all your staff? Some of you have fairly large staffs, and you've got to really think this through. So we've put together a template for you to think that through. Put together your prenatal and postpartum teaching plans as well as your data collection plan. So we just see this as the planning process. All those plans get submitted to us. We review them and provide feedback. We don't approve or disapprove of plans. We don't approve or disapprove of policy. We assess you for your compliance with our guidelines and evaluation criteria. So I just want to make that clear. Then we see the dissemination phase. The next phase is when you roll out your plans. Now, many folks have said, can we start in the development phase? And of course you can. If you've got an idea and you want to get started, of course you can. Try things out. So it's not meant to limit you. It's really meant to kind of structure and help move you through a process. But in the dissemination phase, you're rolling out your plans, you're training your staff, you're beginning to collect data, you're doing quality improvement. And I know you're going to talk a lot more about quality improvement a little bit later on today. And then when you feel you've rolled out all of your plans, you can still be collecting data, still trying to get your numbers up to our evaluation criteria requirements, and then move into the designation phase, which is where we help you prepare for your on-site assessment. So that's kind of how the 4D pathway works in a nutshell. So this is a different view of the 4D pathway because I know folks look at different things from different perspectives. We actually saw the 4D pathway as a giant PDSA, but I knocked that slide out of this presentation. But we saw the planning, the development phase as a planning phase, the dissemination is do study, and the designation phase is the act. And we see that as a cyclical process. But anyway, looking at the logic model view of the 4D pathway, starting over on the left-hand column, you start in the discovery phase with the inputs from your MPINC scores, your self-appraisal tool, our guidelines and evaluation criteria, the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. You then kind of move into the development phase where you're forming. We recommend taking your multidisciplinary committee and breaking them down into 4 subgroups, 4 subcommittees. We think of a committee that maybe focuses on policy, a committee that focuses on training, a committee that focuses on practice change, and then a committee that focuses on continuity of care. And we call steps 3 and 10 the continuity of care steps. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. That is not a requirement that you do that. It is just our recommendation. And so you may all find different ways to break out your committees, and that is perfectly fine with us. It's just an idea. But essentially, we give you some suggestions also about who to include in the various committees. And then your short-term outcomes in the dissemination phase are revised policy and protocols that are beginning to be implemented. You've got staff trained with the knowledge and skills to implement the policy. You begin to collect data, collect some baseline data, and then data to evaluate the practice changes that you're putting in place. You're implementing practice changes, and then you're auditing them for the desired outcomes. And then moving into the designation phase, you've got current evidence-based practice solidly incorporated. You've got staff with their competencies who are verified. You've got data-driven quality improvement plans, and you're continuously evaluating your work to make sure you're continuously achieving the outcomes. And then ultimately, you've got improved exclusive breastfeeding rates, compliance with the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding, compliance with the code, and baby-friendly designation. So Each of the phases of the 4D pathway comes with a set of toolkits. So I just want to walk you through the toolkits that you'll be receiving as you go through the 4D pathway. So in the discovery phase, it's just a basic set of information on what is the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, what are the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding, what is the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. We give you the self-appraisal tool, though that's also online. And we have a sample CEO support letter, so you don't have to write it. The real purpose of the CEO support letter is to making sure that the facility understands that this initiative is underway. This is not just a project of lactation. This cannot be carried out by a sole person within the organization. It really is a facility-wide effort, and it's amazing how widespread you find the baby-friendly tentacles spreading within a facility. So that's kind of a primary purpose.